Hey guys, it's Man89 here, I hope you're doing great, and for Halloween I thought I'd make a list of the best recent horror games you should play in 2021 or during the first half of 2022. If you find this video useful, I'd really appreciate it if you could show your support by hitting the like button. And if you're new to the channel, then please take a look at my other videos, and if you like them, then consider subscribing. Oh, and guys, if you could please turn on those bell notifications, that would help a lot. Thank you so much. Now that we got that out of the way, how about we start with the first game? House of Ashes isn't really super scary, but it managed to keep me on the edge of my seat throughout the whole game. I mean, apart from the long and boring intro, which could have easily been replaced with a 5-minute cutscene. Speaking of cutscenes, I fucked up so many times and almost got my characters killed just cause I got used to putting down the controller during cutscenes, and that's definitely not something you want to do while playing this game, or you'll get caught off guard by those QTEs. Cause yeah, you only have full control over your character during exploration phases, the rest is done through quick time events. Oh, and the game takes place during the invasion of Iraq, and if you speak Arabic like me, then you'll be weirded out by the fact Iraqi characters speak Egyptian. Which doesn't make any sense. That's like if, let's say, American characters had a British accent. Everybody would think it's just weird. But, on the bright side, House of Ashes has local and online co-op, and in local co-op you only need one controller that you'll be passing around until you and your friends get everyone killed and run out of characters to play with. House of Ashes is, in my opinion, the best one in the series since Until Dawn, plus the monsters are definitely real this time, so give it a shot if you haven't already. The second game you should play is Resident Evil Village, which is a direct sequel to Resident Evil 7. So you still play as Ethan Winters, you know, the guy who only gets hand injuries so you can always see the agony he's going through. Oh, and by the way, there are no storage boxes on this game, but there is a merchant so you can sell the items you don't need and manage your inventory differently. Resident Evil Village's atmosphere is great. Romania is an interesting location, and this lady right here is the #1 reason why thirsty dudes bought the game. Speaking of which, her last name is pronounced Dimitrescu, not Dimitrescu. It's a Romanian last name, you know. Even though the game is too action-oriented for my taste, especially at the end, it's still worth playing just for the dollhouse part, aka House Beneviento. Trust me, it'll scare the shit out of you. Moving on to the third game on my list, the Medium gives off some strong Silent Hill vibes because of the camera angles and also because of the soundtrack. But the crappy animations will quickly remind you this is definitely not a Silent Hill game. In all seriousness though, the first thing that sets this game apart from most horror games is the fact it's almost always in split screen. And that's because it's running two worlds at once. On the left side, we have the real world, and on the right side, the spirit world. Whenever you're stuck in the real world, you can have an out-of-body experience that allows you to move in the spirit world for a limited amount of time. So this unique concept makes the gameplay even more interesting, the environments look amazing, and since you can't really fight in this game, you'll have to either hide or run away from the monsters that will come after you. At number 4 we have Amnesia Rebirth, and if you're new to the Amnesia series, then you should know that remaining in the dark for too long raises your fear levels, so you have to stay near light sources. But darkness isn't the only thing you'll have to worry about. There are also creepy monsters that you'll have to hide from. The game takes between an hour and 2 to get going, but if you're an Amnesia fan, then I'm sure you won't mind that. Moving on to the next game, and this one has a much bigger budget than Amnesia. Just kidding, it was probably made by two guys in their basement. Tormented Souls is a classic horror game that's heavily inspired by the older Resident Evil and Silent Hill games. You wake up naked in a bathtub with a tube down your throat and you realize someone took your eyeball. After solving a couple of simple puzzles, you'll find yourself being chased by a guy in a wheelchair. And when you tell the priest about it, he gives you a nail gun so you can go back to the handicapped guy and fuck him up. Now you know why the game is on my list, cause even though gameplay wise it has some good ideas, I don't think everyone is gonna like the tank controls, the typewriter save system, and the horrible voice acting. That being said, the game is scary and quite interesting, so if you're into classic horror games, then I'm sure you'll like Tormented Souls. But for those of you who prefer more modern gameplay and graphics, the next game might be more suitable for you. Cause we're gonna be looking at Resident Evil 3, which is way scarier than Resident Evil 2 Remake due to the nemesis being faster, stronger, and scarier than Mr. X. Oh, and don't even waste your time on Resident Evil Resistance. You know, the shitty online multiplayer mode that Capcom shoved down our throats. And it's a real shame this remake doesn't have the clock tower and the park, Two locations that are considered some of the best parts of Resident Evil 3 and that were simply removed from the remake. On the bright side though, the graphics are pretty impressive, especially when it comes to character faces, and the new dodge mechanic is a welcome addition, but all around I feel like this one was rushed and too much content ended up being cut from the original game. Now even though, like I said, this one is scarier, objectively speaking, Resident Evil 2 Remake was a much better game, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't play this one too, cause both games are really good. Now to change things up a little bit, let me show you a game that doesn't have any combat. Maid of Sker forces you to rely on stealth if you want to stay alive. Make sure you like walking simulators though, cause this is one of those. You'll be roaming the Sker hotel while trying to avoid enemies, and if they get too close, you'll have to hold your breath so they can't hear you. And that's about everything I have to say about this shitty game. Whoops, I wasn't supposed to say that. Now, the next game I want to show you is a lot more accessible and definitely less scary than most games on this list. So if you're a pussy like me, then maybe get Little Nightmares 2 Enhanced Edition. This puzzle, platformer / adventure horror game doesn't have any blood or gore in it, but it's still scary though. So if you have kids and you want to introduce them to the survival horror genre, I think Little Nightmares 2 would be the perfect game to do that. While playing this game, you'll come across some pretty disturbing enemies like the teacher and her long-ass snake neck. The atmosphere and soundtrack are great, the art style is amazing, and the game just got a next-gen upgrade that looks and runs better. Regardless of the platform you own though, you should at least try Little Nightmares 2. At number 9 we have a remaster. Fatal Frame, aka Project Zero, Maiden of Blackwater, originally came out on Wii U about 6 years ago, and this remaster finally allows everyone to play it. So on this game, you're basically a paparazzi for dead people. Shitty jokes aside though, you actually fight ghosts by taking pictures of them. But the most important thing in this game is obviously the jiggle physics. Hopefully if enough people buy this remaster, we'll get a brand new game on next-gen consoles with some breathtaking graphics. For now though, the fans will most certainly appreciate this version. Last but not least, at number 10, even though as usual my top 10s are in no particular order, we have Visage. Inspired by PT, Visage is a slow-paced, extremely scary, amazingly looking psychological horror game. In other words, a walking simulator. In all seriousness though, this one is pretty challenging and does a lot of things differently than most horror games, so if you're brave enough, pick up Visage and just hope that it doesn't fuck with your head too much. By the way, for those of you who managed to get a next-gen console, or both, like me, that was so unnecessary, I know. Sometimes I just love being a dick for no reason. Anyways, what I really wanted to tell you is that Visage, or Visage, just got an enhanced edition on PS5, Xbox Series X and S, and it features improved graphics, 4K 60 FPS, and haptic feedback support. And that's gonna be it for the best horror games you should play right now. I did my best to pick all kinds of horror games, and most importantly, games that came out this year or last year, so I really hope you found this video useful. Please don't forget to leave a like if you did, and subscribe if you're new to the channel. I upload between once and twice a month, and I stream once a week, and I reply to everybody in the comments, so say hi. It's been Hitman89, see you guys very soon.